A very good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you all are doing well. At the same time, I hope that you are keeping yourself safe and sound. And also, I'd like to welcome you to the week 12 of the semester. And in this week's class, we will be looking at our lecture notes. Furthermore, you will be going over your tutorial questions. Apart from that, you have your project, your research project, which has already been released up on Moodle. And I hope that you have already grouped up, chosen a topic, and you have begun with the work already. As for today, we'll be going over the chapter 9 of the textbook that we are referring to for this particular course. And this is your very second last set of lectures for this semester. We have chapter 9 and chapter 10, which would be the last two chapters. And after that, we would be finishing up with the lecture notes. So week 12, week 13, apart from that, you'll have a week or two still left, set of lectures left. Now, in those 2 weeks, we will actually do some revision work and then get you all ready for the final examination. So without further delays, let's start working on today's lecture notes. And today's lecture notes is based on system development and project management, a corporate responsibility. Now, in today's lecture, what we'll be looking at, we will be looking at some of the different types of system development methods. Apart from that, what is a project, what project management is, and the importance of how projects are managed within the organization, and what are some options in which projects can be established or projects can be undertaken in an organization. So we'll be looking at all that in today's class. Now, today's lecture has an overview of 2 sections. So in section 9.1, we'll be looking at developing enterprise applications. In it, we'll be looking at the system development lifecycle, the software development methodologies. We have waterfall, we have agile, we have, apart from agile, we have some more, we have rapid application development, and moreover, we'll be looking at that, agile software development methodologies, and under section 9.1, we also have service-oriented architectures. In section 9.2, we'll be looking at project management, using project management to deliver successful projects, the elements of project planning. Now, project management has a total of a few steps. So what are those steps? What are the elements in them? We have primary project planning diagrams. There are generally 2 types, PERT chart and Gantt chart. And finally, we'll be looking at outsourcing of projects. Now, section 9.1, developing enterprise applications. The learning outcomes for section 9.1 are describe the 7 phases of system development life cycle. SDLC, or system development life cycle, they mean the same thing, and it has 7 phases to it. Summarize the different software development methodologies. So we have SDLC itself, we have waterfall model. Moreover, we have RED, we have agile, we have RUP, and so forth. And the third learning outcome for today's lecture notes for section 9.1 is explain why a company would implement a service-oriented architecture. So these are the main learning outcomes that you should be able to fulfill by the time you finish up with today's lecture notes. Now, the systems development life cycle. Software that is built correctly can transform as the organization and its business transforms. Software that effectively meets employee needs will help an organization become more productive and enhance decision-making. Software that does not meet employee needs may have damaging effect on productivity and can even cause a business to fail. Now, over here, the software, the word software generally refers to any form of computer applications that are used in business. So most likely we are looking at enterprise resource planning, we're looking at supply chain management, you're looking at customer relationship management based applications. So if you have a software that has been correctly installed and the right type of software that is used in the organization, it can transform the business and it can transform the business processes in abundance of ways, in a good way. Moreover, if you have softwares that are easy to use, that builds up employees' morale, that builds up the productivity and the decision making levels of an organization, obviously the organization is bound to gain a lot of success. However, if there are softwares which are quite opposite to what I have said, they are not so preferred by the employees, it has a damaging effect on the productivity, and it is basically is catastrophic to a business, what will happen is the business will most likely fail in its day-to-day operations. As organizations' reliance on software grows, so does the business-related consequences of software successes and failures, including increase or decrease in revenue, repair or damage of brand reputation, prevent or incur liabilities, increase or decrease productivity. Now, if you have a very crucial software, let's say a software which acts like a critical management system or critical system in an organization, if it does well, it is bound to increase revenue, it will build up reputation, it will prevent any form of liabilities, and it will increase productivity, and overall it will lead to a success of the organization. However, if that software is doing quite the counter of what you had presumed while you had installed or implemented the software within the organization, it will cause a decrease in revenue, it will damage the brand of the organization, it will incur liabilities, it will decrease the productivity levels of the organization, and most likely it will be a complete failure to the organization. So therefore, when you are implementing a software in an organization, you need to carefully plan everything. And carefully planning comes with proper project management skills and proper system development life cycle management of things. Now, system development lifecycle, SDLC, the overall process for developing information systems from planning and analysis through implementation and maintenance. In general, the system development lifecycle has 7 phases. So you plan, okay? So you plan for a software or you plan for a project, you analyze all the requirements and what all things that are needed, then you design, okay, a logical design. A logical design is something that is done on a paper or on a software, and that design is then developed. The difference between design and development phases are design phase, you're just building something logically, okay, something on a paper, something that is not yet built. With development phase, you are actually building the physical system, built in real. Okay, and then after it's built, you will test it. Once the testings are carried forward, what you will do is, and you'll notice that everything runs well, then you'll implement it within the organization, and then you'll maintain it. Out of all, the most important phase is all the phases. Okay, all the phases are very important because all of them has a key role and a key part to play. The ongoing phase in the system developing lifecycle is always going to be maintenance phase. Now, with the maintenance phase, this is where you have implemented the software or you have implemented the system. And after implementation, you carry out day-to-day support work, you carry out necessary renovation and maintenance to the system. And then if you have any major changes to do, then you repeat the entire set of 7 phases altogether. Planning phase establishes a high-level plan of the intended project and determines project goals. Now, it is a high-level plan. When you talk about something as a high-level plan, high level generally goes, that means it goes to people who are sitting at the higher level of the organization. Now, high-level plans are generally summarized. They are generally as simple as possible, and there's a dialogue saying hitting the bullseye or hitting the hammer on the head of the nail is something as such, because you don't want to beat around the bush too much. What you want to do is you want to list down why you want to get a project done, what are some of the project goals, and why is it necessary to get the projects done there and then. So once you have listed it down in a document, and once you do a presentation, if the management approves, then you go next to the analysis phase. The analysis phase involves analyzing end user business requirements and defining project goals into defined functions and operations of the intended system. Then in the analysis phase, what you do is you go and study the entire organization. You go and study all the users. You'll go and study all the business requirements. You'll study all the goals for the business, the motives, the aims, the strategic goals. And based on that, then you go on and start analyzing which type of software would be best for the organization. Okay. Now, what happens is in the planning phase, you already have made up your mind. Okay, that this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what the organization want to do. In the analysis phase, what happens is you start looking at the users. You try to meet in their demands and their requests and their basically requirements. The next phase is design phase. So based on all the requirements that you've gathered from the analysis phase, then you start establish descriptions of the desired features and operations of the system, including screen layouts, business rules, process diagrams, pseudocode, and other documentation. So based on all the requirements that you gathered, then you'll start designing the system logically, probably on a paper, probably in a software. Now, generally in such phases, you have a PERT chart coming in, you'll have a Gantt chart coming in, you'll have a use case diagram. You'll also do total cost of ownership. You'll do a net present value and all those things. And then you'll try to get the design up on board. Now, once the designs, let's say they are approved, then you go to the development phase. Involves taking all the detailed design documents from the design phase and transforming them into the actual system. So whatever you had on paper, now that particular element or that particular system comes in real life. This is where you actually start building it. In the development phase, what happens is generally you will have a developer who will start developing the software through coding. You'll have people who would actually start doing the actual work. Now, after the development phase comes testing phase. It involves bringing all the project pieces together into a special testing environment to eliminate bugs, to eliminate errors and bugs, and verify that the system meets all of the business requirements defined in the analysis phase. So in the testing phase, what you do is all the requirements that you've listed in the analysis phase, you'll have a checklist of that, and then you'll start using the system. And once you use it, you'll place a check or you'll place a tick whether the system that is actually developed meets the requirement that was specified in the analysis phase or not. Also, if there's any errors, if there's any bugs. Now, bugs does not literally mean the actual bugs. Bugs here in computer terms means some type of coding error. Okay, so these are bugs. Implementation phase involves placing the system into production so users can begin to perform actual business operations with it. Let's say you've done the testing, everything goes well, and you decide and give a green signal, right, that we will now go and implement the system within the organization. Now, there are different types of implementations that could be applied, but for now in the implementation phase, what happens, the system that is built and tested is actually implemented, or it actually starts, or it is installed in the organization. Okay, so we have the different types of implementations. So you have parallel implementation, uses both the legacy system, by the way, it means the old system, and the new system until all users verify the new system functions correctly. This is where you have the new system and the old system side by side, unless and until you know and you're very much confident that the new system fulfill all the requirements and ensures that all the functions are correctly performed. Only then the legacy system or the old system is put aside. Pilot implementation assigns a small group of people to use the new system until it is verified that it works correctly. Then the remaining users migrate to the new system. Now, pilot is generally just like you have a group of people who would use the new system, okay, and unless and until they get fully verified and confidently verified that the new system works correctly, then the new system is actually being implemented in the organization. Plunge implementation. Plunge means you take a jump. Okay, so what happens is over here you're taking a jump and you are discarding the legacy system, and immediately you migrate all the users into the new system. Now, this might be problematic at times. Why? Because once you actually discard the old system, what happens is, what if the new system does not meet your demands, does not function properly? There may be a lot of errors that are witnessed after the testing phase. It could be, okay? So plunge, however, discards the old system. Phase implementation installs the new system in phases, okay? By, for example, by department, until it is verified that it works correctly. So unless and until the new system has been verified, confidently verified that it works well, okay, and then it has been replaced. The implementation phase, rather, it works in phases. For example, it may be installed in one department first, let's say accounting department first. So if they agree everything is well and good, okay, then later onwards it may be implemented in sales department. If everything is done, then probably in marketing department and so forth. Maintenance phase involves performing changes, corrections, additions, and upgrades to ensure that business continues to meet its goals. Okay, so like I mentioned at the very beginning, the maintenance stage is like an ongoing phase. Wherever you try to provide adequate support to the system, okay, you try to fix errors, you try to make some form of additions, or if need be, upgrade the system or the version of the system. Very good example of maintenance phase is like what let's say the ICT guys, ICT support people generally do, the support services people. So what they normally do is basically they provide support. Software development methodologies. There are a number of different software development methodologies, including waterfall, agile. You have RAD, which is rapid application development. You have XP, extreme programming. You have rational, unified process or RUP, and Scrum. So these are the different methodologies in which softwares are generally developed. First of all, waterfall. Now, how I normally tend to remember waterfall is that it flows from up to down. That means it goes in a sequence. So waterfall methodology, a sequence of phases in which the output of each phase becomes the input of the next. So just like we have the 7 phases, so you'll complete planning first. So whatever output that you get in the planning phase, you will start that as the input in the analysis phase. And then design phase, development, testing, implementation, maintenance, and so forth. So all the events occur one after the other in sequences. Now, waterfall methodology, long description, okay, is very much same as what we had over here. Agile methodology. Now, it is an iterative development. When you say iterative development, that means it's something that repeats or continues over time, okay, consists of a series of tiny projects. Now, agile methodology aims for customer satisfaction through early and continuous delivery of useful software components developed by an iterative process using the bare minimum requirements. So what happens with agile is that you would go around, fix the system as quickly as possible. Once that is done, then you identify what all are the flaws, what all are the faults, what all are the errors, and you continuously go and try to fix those issues unless and until the users reaches a satisfaction. The thing with agile methodology is, and sometimes it may be a plus point, sometimes it may be a bad point. With agile methodology is, for example, you're already running a software organization and one of the employees or the user of the system says, hey, you know, a new version of this came in, probably we should have in our software as well. Okay, so they talk things out with the management team, and the management team says, yes, let's also get that installed. So that new version is then implemented in the current system. Now, that's a good point in terms of the people are moving with technology. The bad point is that generally you never reach a stage where you will fully say, okay, this is where the system development stops. It's ongoing, it's iterative. In other words, it's going to repeat, the steps are going to repeat over and over again unless and until your user reaches a satisfaction. So generally, when people know in an organization that, all right, so they are following an agile methodology, so hardly people are satisfied with what they get. Okay, so what happens is it grow the project rather, or the software will continuously go through a development phase. Now, while that is happening, we also need to consider the amount of resource consumption that could take place. It will take in more funds, it would take in more of labor, it would take in more expertise. Moreover, it is also time consuming. Probably you might need to allocate a separate team for just continuous development of that particular application or software. Rapid application development. Okay, this particular methodology, it emphasizes extensive user involvement in the rapid and evolutionary construction of working prototypes of a system to accelerate the system development process. Now, with rapid application development, you have firstly user involvement. That means users of the system are involved from right at the beginning, and also you deal with a lot of prototypes. Now, prototypes is just like a working model of the actual system. So when you have prototypes, you're able to get a good feel of the system. Again, at the same time, users are able to tell whether this works for them or it doesn't. Something is right or something is wrong, or would then need to be here a little bit improvements or tweaks here and there. Prototype, a smaller scale representation, working model of the user's requirements or a proposed design for an information system. The prototype is an essential part of the analysis phase using a RAD methodology. Extreme programming or XP methodology breaks a project into tiny phases, and developers cannot continue to the next phase until the first phase is completed. Now, what happens with XP or extreme programming methodology is very much similar to waterfall. Okay, but within those different phases, for example, if you are in planning phase, the planning phase is further broken down into tiny phases. Okay, so in a planning phase, probably you might have something like a business case or a business requirement analysis and so forth. So it's broken down into tiny pieces, and then unless and until those are completed, you cannot move on to the next one. While if you compare it to agile or rapid application development, okay, RAD, okay, they do not follow what waterfall or XP methodology does. They go and follow a routine of their own or as per the requirement. Now, rational unified process, RUP methodology, okay, provides a framework for breaking down the development of software into 4 gates. So you have inception, elaboration, construction, and transition. Now, framework basically means it is like a method. It is like a structure of something. So what it does, it breaks down the development of the entire software development phase into 4 gates. So inception is whereby very much same as planning and planning rather. Okay, elaboration is more like what you have in analysis, whereby all the requirements are gathered, and also design phase as well, where the design or the logical model is built. After that comes construction. Constructions is just like what you have in the development and testing phase. System is developed from the logical model, and then it is tested to see whether it meets all the functionality and all the demands or not. And finally, you have transition. Transition is the phase whereby your old system is being replaced by the new one. That means the entire phase of implementation. Scrum. Now, Scrum is also a methodology, and with the Scrum methodology, what happens is small teams, they produce small pieces of deliverable software using sprints or 30-day intervals to achieve an appointed goal. Now, what it simply means is this. So you have a team, small team, probably a team of 5 to 10, sometimes 5 to 20 people. And what happens is they'll be asked to design the software. For example, if the software has a module called sales tax, or calculation of tax. So the team will go and try to get that done within the given time that they are within the given time, or within the appointed time rather, to meet the goal, and they'll try the best to get it done within that point in time. Okay, under this methodology, each day ends or begins with a stand-up meeting to monitor and control the development effort. Stand-up meeting is like when you have a right at the beginning, you have a team leader or project manager who would come in, brief the team. Okay, to team, this is what we need to do today. We need to get this done, designed. We need to get this tested, and by the end of the day, let's do a catch-up. So come COB, close the business, or end of the day, what happens is the entire team gathers again, and people give in their report what they were able to do, whether they were able to meet the demands for the day or not. Developing a service-oriented architecture, SOA. SOA is a business-driven enterprise architecture that supports integrating a business as linked, repeatable activities, tasks, or services. Now, service-oriented architecture is very much similar what a ERP does. Okay, now with it, what happens is you have several functionalities. Okay, it is given there. For example, you have tasks within the organization. Moreover, apart from that, you have the different departments: marketing department, sales department, sales department. Probably you will also have your finance department, accounting department, and so forth. So from there, what happens is you try to integrate all these business activities which are repeated. Now, for example, how would that be repeated? For instance, so what happens is, let's say the sales team, okay, let's start from marketing. Marketing team would try to get in more people or more customers. So let's say the marketing team is able to get a customer. Okay, customer's name, for example, is, let's say, Jay. So Jay is a customer. Records of Jay, for example, email addresses, phone numbers, probably location where he stays, his age, date of birth, and so forth is recorded. Now, that is the work of the marketing team. Now, Jay, basically, he likes the item that this particular organization is selling. So then he goes to the sales team and gives in his order. So what the sales team will do is, if the system is not integrated, what they will do is they will again ask for all his details. And likewise, once it goes to the accounting team or the finance team, so the finance team will request all the information from sales team. So what you'll notice is that probably the tasks are repeated in all those three departments. For instance, asking for name, filling in the details over and over again. Now that is for one customer, but if you do for about 1,000 customers, then you're putting in probably 1 or 2 additional staff within the organization, or probably 3 additional staff within the organization. So what you might do is this: you might get a system which integrates all these 3 departments. So if the marketing team, if they had recorded details of Jay, so the sales team would just enter Jay's date of birth or his name and would be able to pull out his record. Okay. Now, how about this? If you have a bank account in, let's say, ANZ, and you have opened your bank account in Namaka, for instance, and then somehow or the other, for work reasons, you go to Suva, and then you have to go and get something sorted out in the bank, and you will go and ask, and when you go and give your account details, they have no record of you in their bank system. What will happen? Frustration, anger. You'll feel, what is this? Okay, I am basically a customer of ANZ. They don't have my record. Then they will say, no, sir, you had opened up your account in Namaka, so your record is there. How would that feel? Okay, so this is just the same example, but service-oriented architectures, what they do is they are able to integrate all these repeatable activities, all these tasks and services, and link them together. So that was section 9.2. Section 9.3 is on project management. So just quickly let me check. Okay, so we only have one person who joined us today for the class. Thank you, Shalini, for taking out your time. Others, I'm guessing they will be watching the recorded version of the class. It's just fine, not a problem. Okay, so section 9.3 is on project management. Now, project management may seem rather like an old topic to some of you, but project management is worth a lot of bucks in the actual industry. Now, there are a lot of vacancies overseas and here in Fiji as well, whereby the project management or the project manager or probably the project management officer, they are paid quite a good sum of money. Okay, why? Because project management is a daunting task. In other words, it is not easy. It requires a lot of thinking ability, and there is a lot of tendency for projects to fail rather to success, because these things, all the phases in a project management is very much crucial. So we'll talk about what project management is. Okay, so section 9.2, the fourth learning outcome for the lecture is explain project management and the primary reasons projects fail. Identify the primary project planning diagram. Okay, we've talked about it. It's per chart and Gantt diagram. Per charts, yeah, and Gantt charts. They can identify the three different types of outsourcing along with their benefits and challenges. So inshore, nearshore, and offshore. Those are the three different types of outsourcing. Now, using project management to deliver successful projects. Now, if you have a project, now the difference between project and a process is this. Project has a start date and an end date. If something does not have a start and an end date and it continues in the organization like forever, so that becomes a process. Okay, let me repeat that. A project generally has a start date and an end date. For instance, road construction can be treated as a project. So it starts on, let's say, the 1st of January 2022 and finishes, let's say, 31st of December 2025. Start date, end date. Whereas for example, if there is like the town council people, they go around cutting the edges somewhere in the middle of the road, as I could look outside the window from Namaka campus. Okay, there are some people who are doing it. Okay, now in that case, what happens is it's a process. They don't have a start date and an end date. Once the edges, they become quite big in size, they start chopping it off. Okay, so there's a difference between a project and a process. Now, primary reasons why a project fail: unclear or missing business requirements. Now, business requirements is taken in from the analysis phase. Okay, so if the project team is not working well to attain all the business requirements, there's a likely chance the project might fail. Why? Because once the system is developed, or once the system is in the mid of development, then the users will go and speak out things like, the system is not supposed to do this, it's supposed to do this or do that. Okay, so this is where the entire system, entire project may collapse. You must be thinking, okay, if the users would want to have some changes, how about do it? Yes, you can do it, definitely, but are there funds for doing it? Is there enough time for doing it? Because if you're employing a project manager, okay, so the project manager will be charging quite a lot of money. Okay, and if you have hired expert, you have additional hardware or software, and you have fed in an allocated amount of funds. So that could be some of the contributing factors why the project might fail. Skipping the SDLC phases, the 7 phases, if you try to skip those phases, there's a likely chance your project may not do well. Now, in some cases, it may be exceptional. For example, if you're using agile or rapid application development types of methodology, you don't need to follow the complete structure of the SDLC phases. However, over a period of time, they do go through that phase. Failure to manage project scope. Scope is what all things that is supposed to be there within a project. Now, scope creep is when the objectives of the project happens to amp up or happens to increase while the project is in the development phase. For example, you are supposed to develop a website, for instance. Halfway down the line, the business owner tells you, okay, how about this? You make a website. Together with that, you feed in a booking engine and a payment engine. So booking engine is where you do the bookings, hotel websites, where you do the bookings. Payment engine is where you process the payment. Now, what happens is, with what the project manager would do is, or the project person who is the project leader would do, they say, Yeah, I can do that, provided you feed in close to another 20 grand. Okay, so that's scope creep, when the scope increases. Feature creep is when somebody tries to tell you to put in more features in a particular software application. Now, the previous example that I gave, that can also be an example of feature creep, okay, whereby somebody tells you to put in additional stuffs in the software and so forth. Failure to manage project plan. That means somebody or the person who was managing the project plan, in definite cases, the project manager, he or she had not planned it well. So if the planning phase is incorrect, okay, or if the planning phase which was presented to the executive members of the organization, they were told something else, but something else happened, okay, that's also called failure to manage project plan. If that's the case, your project is always likely to fail. Now, changing technology. This is probably one of the common reasons in the field of information systems, in the field of information technology, and in the field of computer science, is why many of the projects fail. Now, projects, like I mentioned, it has a start date and an end date. Not necessarily all projects will be completed within a month. Some projects may take years. Okay, if you have a very large project, for example, implementing a very large ERP, enterprise resource planning software, in an organization, it may take you a couple of years. A very good example is FNE just went through an ERP change, took them 4 years to get the entire thing done. Now, if during that phase, let's say the ERP becomes obsolete, what happens? Project fails because technology has completely changed. Okay. Now, sometimes this also happens. The software doesn't change, but the hardware changes. For instance, if you were supposed to implement a software and you have purchased the hardware beforehand. So by the time you finish within 4 or 5 years time, your new ERP is not your new ERP or the new software is not able to be compatible with the hardware that you've actually bought. So that becomes a major issue again. Okay, using project management to deliver successful projects. So if you use project management skills, project management phases, project management effective ideas and protocols, you should be able to deliver successful projects. Now, tangible benefit, you have decreased expenses. Tangible, something that you could touch, feel, or see. Okay, you have decreased expenses. You have decreased processing errors. You have decreased response time. When we say decreased response time, is more likely is that when you are able to correspond, or you are able to basically get things done quickly. Increase quantity of sales, increase quality. Now, overall, that leads to increase in revenue, henceforth increase in profit. And this is what organizations, profit-making organizations, they want. Intangible benefits, those benefits that you cannot touch, see, or feel, or they're not directly related to the business, but it helps the business in one way or the other. Improve decision making. Why? Because if you have a successful project, okay, and if you would use project management for projects, what happens is you are able to make decisions based on what is stipulated in the framework for project management. Improved community service, improved goodwill, and improved morale. So these are overall the tangible and intangible benefits that are associated with project management used for delivering projects. Now, with project management comes in feasibility studies. Feasibility studies is just a way of saying whether something is possible or not, whereby is something profitable or not, feasible. Now, what happens, there are a few types of feasibilities. We have close to about, there's quite a few that have been developed over time, but the basic ones will be discussed, and effective ones. Now, economic feasibility. Economic feasibility measures the cost effectiveness of a project. In other words, what you want to know, what you will want to measure is this. By the time you are done with the development of the entire project, will your project actually cover up the cost in a certain period of time? So in here, what you do is you calculate the total cost of ownership, and then you have a NPV done, net present value. So with those two particular elements, what happens is you would be able to know what will be the total cost within, let's say, 5 years time. Remember, this is estimate cost, 5 years time, and how much money are you going to make, and how much profit you're going to make, and on which year. For example, if you're saying within 5 years you should be able to cover up the cost, that means after from 6th year onwards your project will be able to deliver your profit. Okay, now operational feasibility measures how well a solution meets the identified systems requirement to solve the problems and take advantage of opportunities. Now, with operational feasibility, what you're trying to measure is after the project has been developed, would it be able to effectively operate in the organization or not? If it is, you will say the project is feasible, it's operationally feasible. Okay, if not, operationally not feasible. Okay, schedule feasibility measures the project time frame to ensure it can be completed on time. So schedule feasibility actually goes and see whether a project, or it measures rather, whether a project can be delivered and completed on time or not. If it can be delivered on time, so it is feasible in terms of schedule. Now, same thing that I've explained earlier, so we'll move on to the next slide. Now, there are a few more. You have technical feasibility. Technical feasibility measures the practicality of a technical solution and the availability of technical resources and expertise. With technical feasibility, what the organization actually measures is that it tries to measure if there are enough hardware or software or technical resources available to deliver the project. Political feasibility, it measures how well the solution will be accepted in a given organization. Now, please do not mistake the term political here in terms of politics. No, it's not that. Now, political feasibility actually goes and measure, will the people in the organization actually accept the new system that is going to be built or not? That is political feasibility. Legal feasibility measures how well a solution can be implemented within existing legal and contractual obligations. In other words, it measures that the project that is going to be delivered, does it meet all the legal requirements? Now, there are a lot of legal requirements, probably OHS, probably national legal requirements, probably local municipality legal requirements, organizational legal requirements, and so forth. The later in the SDLC an error is found, the more expensive it is to fix. Now, let's have a look at the chart. It's showing a curve. Now, you have planning phase, analysis, design, development, testing, implementation, maintenance. So what happens is that you have, the more closer to you are to finish your project, and if there's an error that needs to be fixed, is going to be more and more expensive. Why? Let's say you have already implemented, let's say you've already implemented a software in the organization, and it has been delivered as a project through the project management team. And once it's been implemented, then you found a very crucial error, which could have been identified in the planning stage. Now, to fix that error, what you need to do is you'll need to go back all the way to planning phase. So what happens? So all that money that had cost from planning to implementation phase would likely re-incur in the second round of fixing the error. Now, PMI develops procedures and concepts necessary to develop the profession of project management and has 3 areas to focus. Now, Project Management Institute, it is an institute based in the United States of America. And what it does, it basically provides project management courses to individuals for a specific fee. Now, if you are a PMI expert, most likely you hold one of the highest qualifications in project management in the whole wide world. Okay, and they are focused on those 3 areas: ethics, standards, and accreditation. Now, triple constraints of project management interdependent variables. Now, triple constraints talk about three types of constraints. You have time, resources, scope. Now, scope is what all things you are going to deliver from a project, what all things you want to deliver. Now, scope basically is also dependent on time. Why time? Because based on the scope, your time is going to be fixed up, and time also will allow certain type of scopes to be met. Now, once you also have a scope, you also have certain sort of resources that the organization will need to employ. Now, if there is an increase or decrease in any one of those three constraints, what happens is it will affect all the other elements, all the other variables. For instance, if your scope increases, you will need more resources. If your scope increases, you will need to take more time to go and complete the project. If the number of resources generally increase, you will need time to get the resources, and your scope will also likely to be affected. If you are consuming more time to get the project done, that means you will need more resources, more people for that more time that you are asking. And moreover, it will most likely affect the scope of the project. So all three of these are interdependent. They depend on one another. Now, project is a temporary activity undertaken to create a unique product or service. Like mentioned earlier, it has a start date and an end date. It's not a process. If you talk about a process, process is a permanent activity. It is an ongoing activity within the organization. Now, project management, okay, project management is a component of project, you could say. Why? Because to manage a project, you need project management skills, project management knowledge, project management tools, or project management techniques. Okay, the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. And to actually get this project management in place while trying to manage a project manager is employed. A project manager is an individual who is an expert in project planning and management, defines and develops the project plan, and tracks the plan to ensure the project is completed on time and on budget. Now, a project manager is a very crucial person in a project management phase because everything is put on the shoulders of a project manager. Why? Because he or she leads the project, one. Two, a project manager needs a certain set of expertise. He or she needs a certain sort of interpersonal skills to get the project team collaborating with one another. He or she would also need to be a good decision maker. If there is someone who is very poor in making decisions, it's likely to cause a lot of problems to the organization and to the entire project as a whole. Now, project deliverable, a measurable, tangible, variable outcome, result, or an item that is produced to complete a project or part of a project. Now, project deliverable is more likely, now you have phases, 7 phases, let's say project planning. So project planning, the deliverable is a business case. So what happens is deliverable is like a overall deliverable is the entire project. So within the phases, you have mini deliverables as well. So these deliverables, what happens is basically they're part of a project and it gives a sort of a measure as to where the project is heading. Project milestones, these are the key dates when a certain group of activities must be performed. Now, we have project deliverable, and then you have project milestone. So project is the entire thing. Project deliverable is like the thing that you need to get at the end of each and every phase. Project milestone is probably the set of activities in the phases which needs to be achieved, and it's a specific dates. Okay, project milestones. And PMO is a project management office. Now, an internal department that oversees overall organization projects. Now, PMO is just like you have an accounting, a marketing, or a sales department within an organization. Some organizations would have a PMO department as well. So what they do is they look at the overall stature, they look at the overall organization structure, and oversee the entire set of projects that the organization is going through. Project stakeholder. In simple terms, these are the people who hold stake in a business. Stake means interests in a business. Individuals and organizations actively involved in the project or whose interests might be affected as a result of project execution or project completion. There could be a lot of different types of project stakeholders, but generally they are categorized into two. You have an internal stakeholder and then you have an external stakeholder. Internal stakeholders are all those people who are involved with the organization, who are partaking in the project in one way or the other. And external are all those which are outside the organization. When you talk about internal stakeholder, you're most likely talking about people who are working within the organization. You're talking about the IT team, the project team, the managers, the executive managers, or probably the owners of the organization. Now, external stakeholders, these may be suppliers, these may be customers, these may be competitors even, okay? External people. Moreover, there could be some other people like sometimes you have external funders, external fund providers, okay? So these are the people who would be external to the organization, and they also take up a role of a project stakeholder. Executive sponsor, a person or group who provides the financial resources for the project. I think this is very simple. Sponsor, okay, we know people who gives financial resources. SMART, okay, primary project planning diagram. So one of it is SMART. Okay, SMART stands for specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time frame. Criteria are useful reminders on how to ensure that the project has created understandable and measurable objectives. So all the objectives need to be specific, they need to be measurable, they need to be agreed upon, they need to be realistic. Why realistic? You need to ensure if you are putting up or laying out an objective or a scope, it needs to be, or it can be delivered. Do not just put down anything. Do not say that, do not be something like this whereby you'll say, okay, within 2 days, I will create a drone and the drone will help Ministry of Health to transfer blood from Nani to Suba. That's like impossible, okay? So now it is not impossible, but doing it 2 days is impossible, okay? So you need to be realistic, and most likely the last one, you need to be very much realistic with the time frame as well. Project plan, a formal approved document that manages and controls project execution. Now, planning has to play a very major role in project management. Why? Because a project plan would actually put down what all things needs to be done, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, for what reason you're doing it, who all will be in the project, what all resources will be needed, what all funding is required, and what happens if there's an unforeseen circumstance, okay? A well-defined project plan should be easy to understand and read, communicated to all key participants, appropriate to the project size, complexity, and criticality, prepared by the team rather than individual project manager. Okay, so very similar to what I had said. Okay, so over here it says everyone needs to understand and read the plan. It needs to be well communicated to all key participants. Key participants over here would be the people who are working with the project, people who are sponsoring the project, and also the users as well. Do not forget the users of the system, even though they will not be literally developing the system, but they have a key role in developing. How? Is because through their expertise in using the system, okay, or through their feedback, many times projects become very, very successful. Project planning diagrams. So the next diagram is on PERT chart and Gantt chart. So with PERT chart, what happens is you try to figure out the critical path. Now, with critical path, what happens is that this is a compulsory path that the business needs to take in the project development life cycle. Gantt chart, what it does, it tells you in what day, in what time, in what hours you should be able to get some sort of work done. Moreover, Gantt charts also allocates resources and technical expertise to each and every milestone of the project. So this is a Gantt chart. It's sorry, this is a PERT chart, rather. It's not so clear. However, this is how it's done. We do this in Microsoft Visio. You can also get this done in Microsoft Word, but you need to do a lot of manual calculations in it and manual drawing of shapes. So it's best to do it in PERT charts. In Microsoft Visio. And this is what a Gantt chart would look like. You would perform this in Microsoft Project, and you'll see it has a start date, end date, and also all the different types of resources that are allocated with it. Now, milestones are indicated. Have a look at this particular portion here. This diamond kind of shape. So this represents the milestone. Outsourcing projects. Okay. Now, outsourcing is just like the organization tries to make an arrangement to get the project done outside the organization. Now, outside the organization does not necessarily only mean overseas. It can be within the country as well. Okay. Moreover, it can be a country which is very, very far away, or country which is very, very near. Insourcing or in-house development uses the professional expertise within an organization to develop and maintain its information technology systems. Insourcing is opposite of outsourcing. An arrangement whereby outsourcing is an arrangement made by which one organization provides a service or services for another organization that chooses not to perform them in-house. In other words, if an organization does not have the technical expertise, does not have the resources, or if they would want to get another organization come in for cost-effective reasons, okay? So what they will do is they will simply go and hire another organization to perform a service or to perform a project for them. Factors driving outsourcing growth. Okay, why is outsourcing becoming a common thing now? Core competencies. Now, with outsourcing, there are many organizations which generally do only outsourcing work. Why? Because that is a business of its own. So many organizations would go and get it done from them because they are more competent. Okay, financial savings, you end up saving huge amounts of money if you are outsourcing things. And with outsourcing, there's rapid growth in terms of they move with technology. Moreover, this is the world of it is an information age, the world of internet and globalization. So it becomes easy to communicate all around the globe, and you may go and find people who are more talented, who are more experienced, and they have more expertise in things that your organization may not have. So therefore, these four are the four major driving factors for outsourcing. So with outsourcing, there are four types. You have onshore, you have nearshore, and then you have offshore. Onshore, that means within the country. Nearshore, that means it's more likely very close to the country. For instance, if you are trying to outsource your project, let's say to Samoa or Tonga or to Rotuma, okay? Now Rotuma would be onshore because Rotuma is part of Fiji. So Tonga or Samoa, okay, nearshore. Offshore is like sending it way, way outside your country's landscape. So in other words, if I would be outsourcing it offshore, so I might give it to a country like India or the States or Australia and so forth. Now, big selling point for offshore outsourcing is inexpensive good work. This is a major reason, cost savings. Now, have a look at that. Now, China would generally charge close to about $5,000 to $900. Sorry, $5,000 to $9,000 for outsourcing work. India would charge close to about 6 to 10K. Philippines, they would charge close to about 6.5 to 11K. Russia charges 7 to 13K. Now, Ireland, they would charge 21 to 28K. Now, look at the difference between those ranges. Canada would charge somewhere between 25 to 50K. United States would charge somewhere between 60 to 90K. Now, Fiji, do they outsource work? Yeah, some company do outsource work here as well. Okay, they do outsource, offshore outsource work rather. Okay, so I'm not so sure what is the current price rate, but if you look at it, most likely China is the cheapest of them all. Mostly it's China and India. Why? Because just because of the heavy population in these countries, there's always a tendency of lack of work. So people would normally try to do a good set of work for way more less amount of money. Moreover, why that less is because the currency is also plays a key role. For China and India, the currency is very small compared to countries like the States, Canada, Ireland, and even Russia. Outsourcing benefits. Okay, let's look at some of the benefits. Increase quality and efficiency of business processes. How come it's more quality and efficiency when it's outside? Quality, why? Because people will try to maintain their standards. If they are providing offshore outsourcing work, it's more efficient. Why efficient? Is because you're running with technology, one. Two, everything is done on time. Okay, if you're getting it done within the organization, you'll need to hire more people, get more resources, get more funds, and so forth. For even less than about a quarter of half of the price, you can get the entire thing done in a much more better way if you're doing it through outsourcing. Reduce operating expenses for headcount and exposure of risk to large capital investments. Like I mentioned earlier, funding. Okay, now what happens is this: when you're outsourcing something and project fails midway, you can always get back the entire set of money as per SLA, service level agreement. Now here's the thing: if you're doing it in-house, something goes wrong, all your money is lost. You have no one to complain to. You have no one to fire except for the staff that you've hired. Apart from that, if you're doing it through outsourcing organizations, you can get the entire set of money back. Moreover, with outsourcing, offshore outsourcing, work is generally done in phases. So you go and disclose the amount in phases. Access to outsourcing service providers, expertise, economies of scale, best practices, and advanced technologies. So there's easy access to it through internet and globalization. Economies of scale, it is the amount of output that you get on level of input. For example, if what I'm saying is, when you talk about economies of scale, is like the more input that you put in, the more the output that you get. There's economies of scale. And advanced technologies. Finally, increase flexibility for faster response to market changes and less time to market for new products or services. So this is also could be another thing. I remember we were talking about technology. So technology changes every now and then. Okay, so if you are outsourcing things, you have the flexibility to change as per the market demands. If you are doing it in-house, it might cost you a lot of money, it may cost you a lot of time, it may cost you a lot of resources to get it done in-house. So if you're doing it with outsourcing with a little amount of extra fee, you could get it done very, very easily. Outsourcing challenges. Now, with every good thing comes the baddies. Okay, and over here we also have some challenges. The length of the contract, difficulties in getting out of a contract, problems in foreseeing future needs, problems in reforming an internal IT department after the contract is finished. Now, I mentioned a term called SLA, service level agreement. Now, this is more likely or retermed as the word reterm, or it can be retermed as the word contract. What happens is, if you put yourself in a contract somewhere midway, you want to get out of the contract, out of that SLA, what you will have to do is you might need to pay in someone certain amount of money to get out of that project. And fair enough, rightly so. Okay, if you are pulling out of a project, so the outsourcing company would be going to a loss because they have invested some time on this. Okay, so therefore you'll be bound to pay it. Moreover, you are not able to forecast things that might happen in future if you are going through an outsourced companies. Whereas if you're doing it in-house, what you can say is this: Okay, we have installed a new system. Let's hold back our cash and everything. After 5 years, will change. Now, sometimes this happens. With outsourced companies, they force people to change a few things. For example, they would say, all right, we are upgrading our server. Therefore, just because our server is upgraded, it cannot operate on Windows 7 anymore. You need to get Windows 10 or Windows 11. Now, that might be an issue. So what happens in that case is that you are forced to change. Okay, so you are not able to foresee the future needs. Okay, and after you have got out of the contract, okay, you'll have difficulty in terms of reforming an internal IT team which can look after the demands that the outsourcing company was looking at. Okay, and the next challenge is threat to competitive advantage. Why threat? What if you and your competitor have hired the same company to get the same work done? There's a lot of threat in that case. So the outsourcing company would both would provide the same level of service to both the organizations unless one pays them more than the other. What if you fall on the one who actually pays less? So you have a threat to get competitive advantage. And loss of confidentiality, because most of your data is recorded online on the web. Okay, so there's likely chance that your data may be exposed. Moreover, if somebody else is managing your company data from the other side of the world, so you are bound to show a lot of your confidential stuffs. However, this can be catered. How it can be catered? You can have an SLA in a contract on data confidentiality. Moreover, if you feel that there's a likely chance, since your data is stored online, your data may get exposed to hackers. Companies which provide outsourcing services these days, they are very much secured. Okay, for instance, your Gmail accounts, your internet banking, your mobile banking, your PayPal account, your credit card information, all of it is stored online. Okay, but it's very much confidential. It's kept very much confidential. So likewise, the outsourcing organization will perform the same. Now, this finishes up the notes for week 12 lecture. Not difficult, pretty simple. Okay, now what you need to know from today's class is few of those things. Okay, and you need to know them very, very properly. First of all, you should know what is system development lifecycle and all the phases in it. The different types of methodologies, learn the different type of methodologies in a very brief manner. Okay, apart from that, you should know what is project management, what is a project, what is project milestone, what is project deliverable. Okay, and moreover, the reasons for one to go through a project management phase. Also know about outsourcing, the different types of outsourcing, advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing. So that's pretty simple on today's lecture notes. I hope that you are keeping up with all your other syllabus, especially with lecture note quizzes. Moreover, your project, which is your research project, which is also up on Moodle. I hope you have already begun with it and you are going to finish it on time. Due date is on the 31st of October, FYI. Okay, so thank you very much for joining in today. I appreciate your time and efforts. I'll see you all in our tutorial class on Friday. Till then, rather, take care and stay safe. Thank you.